in Africa this afternoon. You're watching my media prime. Today we are going to be talking about how to sustain the spirit of Pan-Africanism handed down to us by our founding fathers or our ancestors. That is the topic in today's edition of the program 90 Minutes in Africa. And we already have our panelists and who are here with us in the studio to talk about this very, very interesting topic. As you know, those who founded Africa, those who founded the various nations which constitute the United States of Africa, they wanted Africans to be united. They wanted the black race to be a race, the most powerful in the world, through freedom of expression, a race that would show be like a shining light for others to follow, and that would be like each other's keeper. Is that the case today, decades after independence? What can we do to maintain the flame of the Pan-African spirit? That is the topic we are going to be discussing in this edition of 90 Minutes in Africa. My guests are already there. Sheikh Mohammed, Ngubong, thank you so much for accepting the invitation. Thank you for coming to 90 Minutes in Africa.
It is always a pleasure to serve Africans and the citizens of planet Earth.
And of course, we have here on my right Kediah Malangfe, who is a regular panelist and guest in this show. Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Greetings to you, greetings to my co-panelists, greetings to all our viewers out there at home that have taken their precious time to sit and watch us analyze issues regarding our continent. And I believe I'll give in my best and to make them educated at home.
Renowned Pan-Africanist to the bone marrow, Professor Anthony Akuhmbom is already there. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you very much, Boh Elvis, for the opportunity to actually educate Africans on Pan-Africanism, because it is supposed to be the very heartbeat of every African. I mean, Africans of all category and those in the diaspora. I think one thing that will make us stay focused is our understanding of where we are going to and where we are coming from. And so today we'll be discussing on that as much as possible.
Thank you. And of course, academic researcher on African affairs is here with us, Labaran Bekondo. Thank you for coming, sir.
It's a wonderful thing for me being here again this week to share what concerns Africa to Africans and the world at large. We are here to add to what people already know outside about Africa and Pan-Africanism. So we pray, I pray God give you the courage, the zeal, the appetite for you to stay on your screen, steady and glued, to hear what we have to dish out in the national cake of Pan-Africanism. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to also thank our technical team. They're already there to ensure that everything goes on well. Our studio manager, the producers and the management are just there to ensure that the program flows as expected. And of course, as I said at the beginning of the program, how do we sustain the Pan-African spirit of our founding fathers? That is the topic of discussion today. When we talk about our founding fathers, of course, we're talking about the Thomas Sankaras, we are talking about the Kwame Nkrumahs, we are talking about the Amilcar Cabrals, we are talking about the Agostinho Netos, from east to west, from west to south, from east to west, from the north to the south. They fought for Africa. They fought for Africa to have its dignity. They fought for Africa to have its independence, which we are enjoying today, of course. They could have just decided to collaborate with the colonial masters and also act as slaves to the colonial masters and enjoy the few benefits at their disposal. But they decided to think about their brothers and sisters, those of us who were still to be born. And today that we are born, are we sure that we have been able to take or to pick up the relay baton which they handed over to us as Pan-Africanists? Now, but before we talk about that, I would like Professor Akuhmbom, Mark Anthony, to give us some of the basic definitions before, so that our people understand, because there seem to be so many definitions of Pan-Africanism. Professor Mark, I wanted you to set the ball rolling by giving the definition of Pan-Africanism.
Thank you very much for that opportunity. I want to begin by saying, when we talk about the spirit of Pan-Africanism, it is that ideology or philosophy that is centered on the unity of the African people of all descents. In fact, it has different aspects because there are individuals who held, for example, if you go back history in the mid-19th centuries, you realize that there were people like Cromwell and Delany and Baldwin, who were all of US and the West Indies, West Hemisphere. Such individuals had a different mindset. For example, if you take Alexander, he believed that for the blacks in the United States to be able to prosper, there is need for them to actually separate themselves from the whites. But Cromwell had another viewpoint, and Baldwin. They believed that the best place for such an ideology to actually be accomplished would be in Africa. So they decided to foster such ideas. That is when the idea of Pan-Africanism started in the mid-19th centuries. The very first Pan-African Congress, though it should say was held in the 20th century, I should use the date 1900 in London. That was when the very first ever Congress held, which permitted these African descents, in fact, who have been scattered around the world, because when we talk of Africans, we are not only looking at those who are at home, we are talking of Africans in general. I mean, those with the black skin color. African descent, those who have been settled, for example, if you have to go down to Southern America and middle, we call it Central America, you have a lot of black nations there. Those are black people who were carried out of Africa under the trademark of slavery and were imported to build Europe and to build the Americans. And now they have been abandoned there. They claim that and they believe that maybe they are citizens of that area, but in real sense they are Africans. And so the idea behind was to pull these individuals and bring them to have a nation in Africa. And so later on in the early 20th centuries, people like Du Bois, who is supposed to be the main, when we talk about the father of modern Pan-Africanism, we are looking at Du Bois. Du Bois is the father of Pan-Africanism. That is the individual who came up with who built the ideology, with a sense that there can be, if Africans will expand and succeed, there must be unity, both political and economic unity. And from that time, you have people like Marcus Garvey, who was from Jamaica, who came up. Marcus Garvey was one of those individuals who believed that Africans need to return home in mainland Africa for Africa to be built. And he came up with his shipping line, which he thought he would use it to transport Africans back home. And as we all know, it didn't succeed the way he wanted. I will tell you, we have a project we are working on how to bring his corpse to Africa, because he successfully transported some people to Africa, but he never came home. And so with the project he had, we also think he should come home. And so such persons, after people like him, because those are the persons that fostered those ideas, and they developed. It is in the 1940s that Africans from home actually joined the cry in order to fight now, using somebody like Kwame Nkrumah, who was one of the first. You have Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya and Julius Nyerere. Those were some of the first individuals from African homeland to join the fight. And it later on, when that, should I use Kwame Nkrumah, stepped up, decided to fight for the independence of African nations, and precisely talking about Ghana, when he succeeded in achieving that in 1957, and he was applauded for it. But he had a main ideology which was a little bit different from that of the other Pan-Africanists. He believed in the unity of the African so-called states, both politically and economically, because he said, we have a common past, a common history, and so we also should have a common destiny. And that is the guideline that should hold every African. But you who look at it today, it is surprising that after all this fight, in 1963, when the Organization of African Union was being formed, those were the individuals who were behind. If you go back and listen to his speech in that particular launching of that organization, you will hear him say, if we do not unite, then we'll get back into slavery. Because he saw our economic union and our political union as the vehicle that will bring total freedom to the African people. But if you look at it, we have gotten so-called political independence. And today, young Africans are more concentrated in nationalism than Pan-Africanism. And worse of it, if you look at it, you go back, I just talk of nationalism, South Africans who kill their fellow black persons because they think that they are not South Africans. You go to Ethiopia, where the very seat and emblem of Pan-Africanism is seated, young South Ethiopians call fellow black man Negro. Exactly. Which is shocking. I was a little bit disturbed last, I think it's a year ago, when the Ghanaians came up and started fighting the Nigerians who were there. It went to the state where the Ghanaian authorities had to destroy a consulate office, Nigerian consulate office in Ghana. And the thing would have gone while if the Nigerian government decided to follow the 1961 convention, call it what? Vienna Convention. But because of that spirit of Pan-Africanism, the president of Ghana had to call to ask for forgiveness. That was in the spirit of Pan-Africanism. And he was forgiven by his fellow man. And to be sincere, I think young Africans need that. Okay. So we are going to be talking deep on that.
Thank you so much, Professor Mark, for that very succinct introductory statement, which has really helped our viewers to have a better understanding of what Pan-Africanism is all about. I don't know whether you wanted to add something to the perspective of, I mean, let's get the key definitions if there's something you wanted to add to what Professor said before we now dive into the subject matter.
I'll just add what he has said. When William E.B. Du Bois, or the Boa, came to Africa, he settled in Ghana, actually settled in Ghana, because from America, he was sent away. And surprisingly, some of the Africans too were there. He settled there because Kwame Nkrumah actually welcomed him and gave him a home. He died there on the 27th of August, 1963. He died there. So he doctrined Kwame Nkrumah on what Pan-Africanism was all about. So Pan-Africanism from Nkrumah had a first-hand knowledge. But Pan-Africanism is just simple. It's a worldwide movement of blacks in or out of Africa to come into a brotherhood and collaborate for the freedom of Africa. That is it. To propagate the dignity of the black man, that the black man has a value. The black man too can contribute into the building of the world. And black people have done so many things that are uncovered. And with time, we'll see these things coming again. So the key word behind Pan-Africanism is brotherhood and unity of the black people within and outside Africa.
Okay, so Sheikh Mohammed Ngubong, how was this spirit of, what acted like a catalyst to this spirit of Pan-Africanism, to the extent that we were able to have our independence, even though not completely, but at least they were able to push to a certain extent for the departure of the colonial masters, and we had our independence, at least with the colonial masters not physically present. What was the catalyst which pushed us to arrive at this particular destination?
From my own point of view, I think all the efforts which are being made and which have been made for a long time by Africans is not taking into consideration one very simple fact. And that is that we as humans, We usually have limited capability, limited knowledge, and limited information, and this changes with time. In other words, our concepts, our understandings have to evolve with time. Now, with the current knowledge we have of the situation of planet Earth, and there I'm going to go outside what perhaps you people have in your textbooks, which are being mentioned in school. Perhaps what I'm saying you will see in 50 years, because that's how slow we are in Africa. I'll give an example. There is a star in the sky called Kepler 68. That's the astronomical name. Those who were from there called themselves the Man system. And the language they use there is called the Tamme language. In that language, the prefix hu means the descendants of. So when they say human, it means the descendants of man. That is where the word human came from. The original race on planet Earth was the black race. That is why the oldest skull so far discovered in China was a black man. In Britain, in a cave on Cheddar, the Cheddar man, which was dated 10,000 years old, was tested on DNA level and found to be a black man. There is the Olmec man, a statue which was uncovered in Mexico, was also a black man. And when you go all over the world, you'll find that the oldest settlers, wherever you go, were black people, because the black people were the original inhabitants of planet Earth. We are sometimes deviated by a rigid interpretation in religion, where they give an idea that human beings were created from Adam. Now, let us look at ecological sources, and I usually ask people this. Just from the current archaeological knowledge, we know that we've had Homo erectus, that is a different species of human being. We've had Homo habilis here on Earth. We've had Cro-Magnon man, a different type. We have Homo sapiens neanderthalis here on Earth. And we have now Homo sapiens sapiens. Which one was Adam? You see? So it's far more complicated than we can have it believed. Now, if we see then from that light, what then has happened is that blacks have been exterminated in all other places except Africa. It is not a question of having them left from here. Yes, millions were taken from here, that's true. Both by the Europeans and the Negro, the Arab slave trade. They took away millions. And the Arab slave trade was even more brutal because the males were castrated and 3/4 died during this process. But before that, you had another situation where the original inhabitants of wherever you go, be it Australia with the Aborigines, they were all black.
So, Sheikh, most of those who are listening to you, especially those in the academic world, they are going to be surprised at this information you're giving. The information is correct, but so many people are going to be surprised because most of these things are not taught in schools.
Of course.
So how come that we don't seem to pass across this vital information to our African sons and daughters so that they can be able to pick up this spirit of Pan-Africanism?
Right. First, I would like to say that the first thing Africans must do is emancipate themselves from slavery. One famous musician from Mali said, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy. For none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and watch?" Now, slavery has got many forms. You have the physical slavery with chains where you go and work. You have pharmaceutical and chemical slavery. Yes, the pharmaceutical products can be slavery. Right now in Africa, the Africans are spending $20.7 billion in curing malaria, which can be eradicated with a single plant, Artemisia and Noah. What is bringing them to think that that is the only solution? Because we were given to them by people with white robes and stethoscopes in the neck, because they've been conditioned to think that that is a standard of perfection.
Mental slavery.
Mental slavery. You have slavery introduced through the media. Have you noticed that in many films, the blacks always play the underdog? It conditions people. It conditions people. And the language itself, which is spoken, makes people to have inferiority complex. You say he's black male. Why not say white male? You say that you blacklist somebody, meaning it's bad. When it is a death celebration, you wear black dresses. And when it's a marriage, it's white. And so on. All of that psychologically influences the way people see themselves. So it's no surprise that our daughters are changing the color of their skin with the cosmetic products because they want to get rid of the bad one. And now, if someone says, thinks that if my skin is black, it means I'm bad. Then comes religion, which is the hardest one of all. They made God into a black man, a white man. The God people worship. Do you really let us be honest and flee the devil and shame the devil, like they say? Can you bow down in front of a statue of somebody on a cross with blonde hair and blue eyes and say, "My Lord, save me, help me"? And then later go and meet somebody at the airport who looks like that person and consider that to be your equal? That is the conditioning. I've taught company executives for more than 10 years, and 3/4 of my students were of European origin. I have knowledge that in some of the companies here in Africa, in Cameroon, the European with the same level of education have 10 times the salary of someone who is black. And that is accepted. Why? Because of that conditioning. If you say that this person is Bamileke, you give him 2 times the salary of the other one who is Bassa. No, they will be revolted. But why do they accept that one? Because of the conditioning. So we have to get out of all of that if we have to really to have any chance of getting anywhere. The worst one is the financial and economic slavery. Right now, because of the so-called CFA, you have a situation where some people are just free to print and go and give you. If the Americans wanted to get all the cocoa supply here, they'll just print dollars. Come and give and carry the cocoa away. And with the case of Francophone Africa, it's double. Piece of paper. Even the so-called papers, after getting, we have to take it to France. And say, boss, look at what we are able to say, oh, good lad, well done. And then they'll take the dollars and print CFA at Chemalé. Somebody burnt it down. I hope they don't build it again. Now, they'll print papers and give you. And because of that, France is taking in 440 billion euros every year, snatched from Africa.
And then keeping our reserves.
In France now, their underground bunkers are keeping 2,500 tons of gold, which they stole from Africa because there's no gold mine in France. And they've given in exchange some pieces of paper they call CFA. That is slavery. You cannot liberate the people and under those conditions. That's like making a race where some people have their legs tight and other people are let to go. The other one is also that Africans must master all the technologies which are available, including, do you know you can cause a population to revolt just by putting something in the water they drink?
Okay. Yes, chemical.
Right. Now that is being done. It is not for nothing that the Tutsi and Hutus who have been at peace for centuries suddenly start cutting one another with machetes. This is a technology which was being introduced in 1920 in Siberia, where there was a prison for hardened criminals, and the Russian government, or the Soviet government of the time, had difficulty maintaining discipline. And one scientist came out with a solution that if you put potassium fluoride into water, or get it into their body somehow, it makes them docile. So since they are hardened criminals, nobody would give them in the form of tablets. They would not drink. They just put in the water circulating in the prison. And it worked so well that they decided to now spread it all over. And now, this was 1920. Between 1920 and now, this technology has not remained on the spot.
It has developed.
It has developed to both to excite and cause revolt and to calm down. Now, we must be very, very, very careful. Now, what you have, I don't really know what the secret services of Africa are doing. Because if we have a here in Africa now, in China in 2020, there were 626 million surveillance cameras all over China. And the Chinese decided to generously offer to build the African Union headquarters with key in hand. And the Africans are accepting. Now, how can we ever develop with that kind of mentality? Now, so we need to get out of physical slavery, chemical and pharmaceutical slavery. We need to have a media which serves us, get out of academic slavery, where our discoveries have to be validated and confirmed by someone in Europe before we know that it is correct. We have to get out of economic and financial slavery, monetary and psychological and cultural slavery. We have to get out of all of that and really become free as Africans. Then we can begin to think of how to go ahead. All the other policies which people would take under these conditions of slavery, in my opinion, will not lead anywhere.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Mohammed Ngubong. Ngubong for that introductory statement. Kediah Malangfe is here with us, an analyst, Pan-Africanist, and of course, I would like you to talk about the kind of life, the characteristics of the founding fathers, or the fathers of Pan-Africanism. What made them different from the leaders we have today? Because of course, if Pan-Africanism has to be transmitted from one generation to the next, it has to pass through leadership. So what made the leaders, the founding fathers of our continent, the founding fathers of Pan-Africanism, different from the kind of leaders we have today in Africa?
It's very simple. It's just to know the difference between a leader and a ruler. Those we have today are rulers, and those we have, those that fought for independence are leaders. They lead us to independence. Why today those we have are rulers that sit and dictate and don't even practice what they do, and most of them think about their self-interest. When you talk about the first question you asked another co-panelist, you asked the catalyst that made our Pan-Africanists to rise and fight for independence. It was very clear. Remember, the white man came with slavery for over 400 years, and the black race suffered after 400 years. And they were not even satisfied with the manpower they exploited. They had to go in now into political domination, economic exploitation, and social domination. This was the system they put in place, and the name they gave us was colonization, which they came to control everything, economic, politics, everything of the continent. And later on, some of Africans that studied in Europe and America learned a lot. Félix Houphouët-Boigny, Léopold Senghor, they studied in France. They learned of the French Revolution. What these people, they had to revolt against their own leaders. The French people revolt against their own leader for such maltreatment that they are doing to the very Africans that they are colonizing. Some of them studied in Britain, and they studied the British Revolution, which they now teach our students in schools and call it Glorious Revolution. I don't understand. That is what some of our leaders that studied in Britain, Kwame Nkrumah and the rest, those are the things they studied, and they realized that these same people revolted against their own leaders because of such bad treatment. And back at home, they say they are colonial masters. That is the same pain and infliction they are giving to our own people. That is where the eyes of our brothers that went, which most co-panelists have listed their names, started opening. And the desire of them to come together started. And the main objective, which we should all know, as one of the co-panelists said, was that all of them should come together, home and abroad, to form a united Africa. And now when we talk about a united Africa, it was not based on you are Nigeria, you are this. It was based on united Africa in the perspective of a nation. Whereas the white man has already tried, did everything possible, that Africa will be at the level of states. And there is a difference between a state and a nation. What is a state? A state is a group of people in a particular geographical environment with a government. That's what a state is. But these our leaders wanted to make Africa a nation because they considered that we are people of the same descent, the same history, the same culture. Those are the aspects that inspired them that we are supposed to come together because we are one. When you go to Europe, for instance, you look at Denmark, Sweden, they are all nations. They have their culture. France, they have their nation. They have a culture. But when you come to Africa, you realize that we are states. No affiliation about nation. They just came draw a piece of land. They don't care about your culture, where you are. They just join everybody. We have part of Adamawa in Nigeria, part of Adamawa in Cameroon. Some people even say that that's where the genesis of Boko Haram is coming from, that they are supposed to be back a nation because in those days they were a caliphate or something like that. That is the problem that we are facing in Africa, that the whites just came, destroyed everything. And so that spirit already came that we are coming to unite the people. We are talking about Africa, but I want to make an example with reflection to Cameroon. UPC leaders, their desire was to create a nation in Cameroon, not a state. They wanted that the entire country of Cameroon today have one language. And if actually we had one language, as this our founding father wanted, today we will not hear that somebody is Bassa, somebody is Bamileke Tontina, somebody is this, somebody is that. Those are the problems that our founding father struggled to create in Africa, a union. But what that's what the leaders did. But what today our leaders are doing, rulers are doing. Our rulers are taking this as advantage of their political benefit. Dividing. You go to Nigeria, somebody will think that I am from the north. If the north is more popular, I need to collaborate with the Yoruba so that I'll put the Igbo people down, destroy, push down their economy and control. You go to Rwanda, they'll say there are two ethnic groups. This one is this one is that. But our founding father wanted to create a nation. Let Africa be a nation. That is why the various unions started to bring Africa together. They started from the first one after the First World War, after independence. They later on changed it. We are now in African Union. And now they see that they have not succeeded. They say, okay, fine. Let us start at the level of zones. Northern Africa, West Africa, Sema zone. It is still not moving because they are struggling to go back to that ideology of our founding father, which was based on nation. But it cannot go because we have rulers that when you do every plan, you do everything, that ruler will think about his personal interest and not state interest. That's the difference between a ruler and a leader. The leader had interest for the nation. I'll quote you again one example. You go to, for instance, Ivory Coast. They have but a ruler and not a leader. That is why he thought that the eco-currency that will be created will unite that area. He did not think about the interests of Ivory Coast and the whole of West Africa. But he decided to think about his personal interest and to stay in power, and decided to be used by the French as a pawn. So those are the problems we are having. The main thing I always say is that the main difference is that our rulers should learn to be leaders. If they become leaders, then Pan-Africanism or the Union of Africa will be very, very easy. It wouldn't even take more than 5 years. Just imagine today, if they create one system, all oil coming from Africa, this is the price. You don't go through any other person. All our cocoa in Africa, this is our standard price. You don't go through any other country to do lobbying that this one is selling like that. If they come together, they do all that. That's all. The international community will be weak. That is even what Gaddafi tried to do with the Arab League to control the price of petrol. That is what they need to do. And to do that, there must be leaders and not rulers.
Thank you so much, Kediah Malangfe. Based on his analysis, Prof. Mark, it appears that the notion of Pan-Africanism seems to be dwindling. And of course, I know that you're a theologian, you lectured in theology. Can we say that there was a kind of failure in the transmission process from the founding fathers to us? Was it supposed to be done maybe through the laying on of hands for us to be able to be real Pan-Africanist? Or there was something that didn't go right, Professor Mark?
You see, with the coming of the ideology of Pan-Africanism, if you realize, if you have taken care, you realize that it seems as if Africans are just getting to know about Pan-Africanism now. The question is, what happened with those who brought in the ideology and the rest of the population? Don't forget, because of the so-called idea of colonialism, Africans were not educated. Don't forget, with the so-called idea of independence, only an elite group had opportunity to actually get to receive this information and learn. And so, with the coming of the social media, it has actually opened up the whole place and is selling out ideas which yesterday was practically difficult to be sold out. So, the transfer of this ideology was restricted because it was not even, first of all, in our curriculums, in schools, was never there. It was just an idea that a few individuals were working for. With that, it becomes practically difficult to transfer it, because the best way to transfer knowledge is through education. If you go back, you realize what the colonial masters came to Africa and did. When they came, they actually abandoned the elderly, decided to start educating the young generation, impacting a knowledge to them which was contrary to the beliefs of the culture. And doing that, this younger generation got up at a particular time when they became the individuals who were supposed to rule. They were looking at the culture as obsolete. And so they successfully transferred their division, their spirit of division, to Africans through the education, and it's spread into today. So that's been maintained. But when our founding fathers, let me put it that way, came up with the idea of uniting Africa, it was a political something. It remained at the political level. It is true, it is said it was a political and a cultural movement, but it was practically not a cultural movement because it was limited to the political dimensions. And so these politicians stayed with it, and it never went down to the people. If the people had the ideology, it would have spread all over and would have created the impact necessary. I will tell you something. When you go back in August 22nd, 1791, when the Haitian Revolution took place, was a few slaves who freed themselves. They were not given freedom. They freed themselves. Then they did something. They started spreading the information and making fellow blacks over there in Haiti, by then was Dominican, to actually rebel. And they successfully planted the ideology in the minds of many blacks. And what happened? They turned against the French. And for 13 years, they decided to fight and fought till they won the French and declared their independence on the 1st of January 1804. When that happened, that was supposed to be the beginning of the freedom of the African people. But what happened? They limited it to Haiti. It never spread. But that is the problem we have as Africans now. We have been educated in division to a state where it is now practically difficult for us to unite in and fight as one body. Go all over the world. From the Aborigines in Australia, cross all over the world. Talk about the black man. The black man has a problem, and that problem is that of division. Where did he get it from? It is not what we inherited from our culture, because we believe in Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the base of our cultural philosophy. But what has happened that we speak Ubuntu, but we practice division. It is based on the educational curriculum. Like Sheikh actually said, we need what? We need to be free. We need to emancipate ourselves from educational slavery. We need to come out of it. Develop curriculums that foster our ideologies and philosophies. And when we do that, we'll be able to build and transfer that spirit of unity.
Thank you.
When, for some of those who have participated in going to ENS, to ENAM,
of course, tell the other people in other African countries, maybe they might not know. ENAM is...
So I'm using every French colonial country.
Of course, they have ENAM.
Has something to do with that kind of administration.
Exactly.
Where they train young individuals not to look at their people as their people, but as their subordinates. In fact, as their slaves. And because it was an institution that was created to transfer colonial, a particular mindset and concept, which was for the colonial master to rule over the people and subordinate them. Till today, that particular ideology is still being fostered in our various institutions in Africa. You go to Enam here in Douala.
That's why we have rulers.
So we are raising rulers, like Kediah actually said, individuals who subordinate their own people, individuals who
call their own people dogs. Who call their own people dogs.
Call their own people dogs. Who will be ready to call others kafar. So those are some of those kind of ideologies which you see, which are not supposed to. So how do we transfer these ideas, this Pan-Africanism? Why is it that it has become used to? We are getting it today. As I said, the social media has done a lot of work. Today, a lot of persons are being educated on social media concerning Pan-Africanism. The organization have a group on Facebook which is over 30,000 followers. The question is why? The information that they receive is causing the change, and so
because someone sent a message on Facebook now, commenting on the fact that we are talking about these things, that we should stop talking and get into action. But I was trying to ask, how do we get into action when people don't even know the basics about who they are?
Very true.
Which kind of action are you going to take when people are not even aware about what Pan-Africanism is?
To round it up and give it up, I will say this: we are in a dilemma right now because we claim that we want action. But as long as an individual does not know what he's fighting for, he's more dangerous than an individual who knows exactly what he's looking for. So they become more dangerous. We don't permit an individual who does not know what he is after to go in for a fight. So I think the best action that we can have right now is to educate. I think that is the best action for now.
Thank you, Professor Mark. Of course, while doing that, it's time for us to take a look at a news development which is somehow linked to Pan-Africanism. The United Kingdom that declared the indigenous people of Biafra hip-hop group in Nigeria as a terrorist organization. Members of the separatist organization won't be granted refuge in the United Kingdom, according to an amended policy statement on asylum published on the UK Visa and Immigration website. The Nigerian government declared the group a terrorist organization in 2017 after widespread killings and acts of violence. At the time, some foreign governments and the United Kingdom among them refused to recognize that declaration. But of course, the news today is that the United Kingdom has declared hip-hop a terrorist organization. The question is coming to you, Labaran Bekondo. Now, we are talking about the spirit of Pan-Africanism, about Africa coming together. Should we say, because Africans have decided to come together, that we should discourage the creation of more states, especially if these states are created based on marginalization being experienced by those that are clamoring for the creation of new states? Which is the situation of the hip-hop that which we've just cited. Is this move, the creation of hip-hop and Biafra, out of that, should it be lauded as Pan-Africanism? So that's what that's a question I have for you.
Now we'll talk about Biafra, the British government terming them as terrorists. You see, it goes to what the different panelists have said. The colonial factor is a very serious virus. The most dangerous virus now is the colonial factor. The time we will learn to treat, to look for a prescription, a cure for this malaria, then we will succeed. Now, why are the Biafrans fighting? We now look at more of the effects than the cause. There are causes. As we said, I take on the studies of Central Africa. There are causes than effects. We look at more of the effects than causes. Why are the Biafran fighting? Why are the other groups, the Al-Shabaab, the Hezbollah, look at what was the reason behind they picking up guns? There's a reason. Their origin has been tempered. have been ravished, they have been raped by this white ideology. What is the whole saga about the Boko Haram? I would like Sheikh to explain to me more.
Okay, so let's hand over the microphone to Sheikh now. Sheikh, maybe before you transition to talk about Boko Haram, my question is also stemming from the IPOB, which is Biafra organization fighting for the independence of the Biafra people, declared as a terrorist organization by the United Kingdom. And as you know, when we talk of Pan-Africanism, we are talking about Africa coming together as one state, as one nation, as Kediah said. Now, while Africa wants to come together as one nation, should other, I don't want to call them sub-states or sub-nations, should other localities who feel marginalized because the spirit of Ubuntu is not being practiced, should they be discouraged from having their dream of self-determination, especially if they are being marginalized? Should they stop dreaming to becoming nations just because they want to practice Pan-Africanism?
We should understand that in a Pan-African setting where all of Africa is considered one, those little groups will not be left to themselves. It will be a question of in-house keeping for all of Africa. Africans will want all Africans to feel happy. I'd also like to stress on the fact that one of the panelists said we want rulers and not, we want leaders and not rulers. Marcus Garvey, which was mentioned by Professor, he started actually was a spiritual movement. He did not just have a political dimension. So we should understand that it is a holistic approach which we should use. One of the mistakes Gaddafi made was that he tried to do before sensitizing. Yeah. So the very people he was trying to help now turn on him by manipulation from outside. Yeah. So what we need is, you see, English is let us exploit the English language now. There is a certain insect which usually attacks dogs, domestic animals, called ticks. Oh, you know, it sucks a lot of blood. Now, in the English language, the prefix poly usually means many. For example, polygon means many sides. Polygamy, many wives. Poly. So when they say politics, it means many bloodsuckers.
Politics.
Yes, politics. Many bloodsuckers. So it's not a political manipulation. To confirm the situation, since we're talking about exploiting language, you see, the word parliament comes from the French word parlement. Just like 50% of the English language has something to do with French and English history. And parlement can be divided into two words, parle and man. In other words, when they speak, they lie.
And then just like minister,
right.
Mini, which is called like something miniskirt, minister, means someone who is a servant, who is not a boss. But now, today, ministers are more of bosses than servants.
So you see, those words sometimes they speak out the truth to us about what is actually happening. And the spiritual level, when you asked once about the catalyst, I thought it was too early to introduce that. The spiritual level of those leaders is crucial in whatever it is they do. The spiritual level must be adequate for them to realize whatever, not only of the leaders, but of the population in general. Because if there is a very big gap between the leader and the population, the leader will be killed.
Can you please help our population understand the meaning of spiritual level? Because some of them will not understand. Maybe they leaders need to fast more.
No. It has nothing to do with ritual. It doesn't have anything to do with the number of times you go to church. It doesn't have... spiritual level is a measure of the person's spiritual vibration, which it gives the capacity of the person to love his creator, to love his fellow man, to love the creatures of God and his environment.
Which means the level of your self-realization.
Right. Self-realization is a term used by our Hindu brothers, which actually goes to explain the same thing. When you consider, for example, I'm coming to Boko Haram. Don't forget you asked me about Boko Haram, because when you consider somebody like Nelson Mandela, in his trial, he said the ideology of having a South Africa where people's value are not determined by the color of their skin is an ideology for which he is willing to fight all his life, and if necessary, is an ideology for which he is willing to die. And he was saying that in the court when he was being judged. Do you think that that person has any interest of benefiting from fleeting life, luxuries, and so on? No, he has a very high level and a very great sense of love towards other Africans and towards other human beings. And later on we saw it when he took power, what happened? He did not cling to power like many other people would have done. Now, coming to Boko Haram, which you asked. You see, every country, every nation, every whatever has got their reclamations. There are always small things people are not happy about. And in the world in which we live, some countries are very advanced in cataloging and registering statistics concerning these revendications of the various populations. I'm talking about organizations like the CIA and so on. So that whenever they want to destabilize somewhere, they will know exactly what to do. That's the world we're living in. Now, in Nigeria, in Africa generally, but we'll talk the case of Nigeria, when the British came, the Muslims had the upper hand when it came to civilization and emancipation. They had the art of writing. The Igbos did not have that. At the time, most of them were going about naked. Now, these people had some kind of domination on the other people. And that's why Osman Dan Fodio had actually started a campaign to spread the influence right to the coast. Then the British came and stopped that movement with the colonial action. And now their influence getting into the Muslim community, where the scholars had a limited access to knowledge. The knowledge of science and technology and so on, which initially in the early days of Islam was promoted by Islam, by the scholars of Islam. Algebra and mathematics, as we know today, is thanks to Muslim scholars. Yes. Had been changed into a knowledge of ritual. In other words, know how many times you have to wash your hands, how the prayer is to be done, and so on. And those were the people who were considered scholars. So the British now came with other types of knowledge, like chemistry, mathematics, and so on and so forth. And immediately, suddenly, these scholars had to accept that they had something else to acquire to complete themselves. But what they decided to do instead was to reject the knowledge coming, and they gave the term Boko Haram. Now, let us explain the word Boko initially means fake. Now, it was used traditionally when a princess or a prince had to get married, because the Hausa people have a culture where when somebody gets married, the woman is usually covered all over and then taken to the husband's house without seeing where she's going. The logic there is, since you do not see the way leading you, going from your house to your husband's house, do not look for the way back home. But when it's a princess, they don't take her through this ordeal. They get a fake bride who is covered, and then the real princess is taken secretly to the husband's house. They call that fake bride Ang Maria Boko, meaning a fake bride. So that is where the Boko word comes from. So when the British came now with this kind of knowledge, which would have, the scholars thought would have downgraded them, they decided to say it was fake Boko. It was Illumin Boko, meaning a fake knowledge. Now later on they had the courage to go as far as saying Boko Haram. That means that Boko, that fake knowledge is actually forbidden. In order to, because you have this effect of the scholars who put people into a box. I'm one of those who's against. I like to free people. And many of my colleague imams, they don't like that. See, because it's very easy to use religion to trample on people. You get someone in a state where he cannot do anything, he has to come and ask you. Now that you make the person into a kind of a spiritual, psychological slave. Now, so the scholars use that influence to make that type of knowledge forbidden. Their hope was that only what they have will remain. But you cannot do that, because what happened now was that the people from the south took advantage of the coming of the British, and now when you go look at the Nigerian films, you can understand. When you talk of the head of a company, whatever, it's someone from the south, but when you look at the driver or the gateman, they say Musa Ibrahim. That was the consequence of that action. Now, but all of this had been going on since the British came. It was never a problem. But when Nigeria now became the first economy in Africa, then the Europeans must realize these people will have to destabilize them because they are going too far. Don't forget, Nigeria was 1/3 of the trade, the third largest trade partner to Britain after America and Europe. So they had to destabilize them. And now they will not look inside their analysis. What tool can we use to bring them down? They can easily find those people now who are narrow-minded, and they give them guns. And they say, no, bring and so on, and that's how the thing comes out. So it is a manipulation. Just like all the other religious movements in the Sahel, they're all manipulations by other people who want to destabilize the country. And when you get that person now to, it's so easy. One of my students was almost had her son blown up. Well, I mean, my own student comes to me to them. I've emancipated them. She left, went and entered another marriage where the husband was one of the sheepifying one. You know, the men had to forget everything I taught them, everything, even the use of computers and all, and then brought them back into that situation of being inside a box. And later on, they asked her that let your son go to Kolafata in the north, put a bomb and explode, and then go to paradise as a martyr. She almost did it, but fortunately, the National Secret Service had been on the trail of the husband. And just before she made the trip, they had they threw the net, which caught the husband and all those other people. So it shows that the manipulation is very easy to do. And it can be, if people are freed from all kinds of slavery, including spiritual slavery, where they use religion to manipulate, it will not be possible for those things to happen.
Thank you, Sheikh Mohammed. Ngubong. Greetings to wherever you're watching us. You can just indicate where you're watching us, especially those that are watching us online. You can send a message to us using the number you'll find on your screen so that we can read out. Of course, if you have a question for Sheikh Mohammed, or a question for Professor Mark, a question for our researcher here in the studio, Labaran Bekondo, or a question for Analyst Kediah Malangfe, you can just send it using the number you find on your screen, either on WhatsApp or either as a normal message. We are going to read it out. Now, greetings to those who are watching us via Facebook and YouTube. Greetings to Clement Fabien. Greetings to Ivo Boh. Greetings to Song Samori. Greetings to Dinga Babila, who says too much grammar, time for actions. Of course, that's the one person who sent that message. Greetings to you, Nze, who says greetings to you guys in the studio watching from Kumba. We're watching from Kumba. Just to remind Mr. Kediah that he forgot to tell us whether his party chairman is a leader or a ruler. Greetings to you, Das Chingoze, and then greetings to Enene Allen, and then greetings to Enene Allen watching from the United Arab Emirates. Of course, to other viewers there. We have a message. Greetings to everyone in the studio. I like your program. My name is Justice from the United Arab Emirates, watching you guys from Dubai. Of course, very soon we are going to talk about another issue from Dubai, which is related to Pan-Africanism, related Poti. Then I get a message which is just coming in from Dr. Wesley, who is an international relations expert, who sends in this message, listening to Sheikh speaking on 90 Minutes in Africa gives me hope that some people actually know what is going on. He is really speaking my mind. These are the things we need Pan-Africanists to focus on, especially in French Africa. France controls more than 50% of Cameroon's economy. France sells Cameroon all Cameroon's natural resources. France has prevented these French countries from owning their own central banks, rendering these countries useless to their people. How do we explain that a country like Cameroon not having the rights to sell her own raw materials in the world market without going through France? How do we explain that a country like Cameroon not able to adjust interest rates of her money in times of inflation like what is going on today with price hikes? A country doesn't have access to their own foreign reserves stored in Paris. The country's currency is pegged to the euros with the EU, with complete different economies. French African countries cannot emancipate if this issue is not addressed and eliminated. So you can send your own message, ladies and gentlemen. You can send your own message. We are going to read it, or you have questions for anyone in the studio, they are welcome. Now, Kediah Malangfe, I don't know, someone sent the question to you there. You were citing other leaders, but you never spoke about your own leader. I want to say, first of all, that Kediah is not coming in today as a communication person from the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, because he appears in other programs in that light. Today he's coming in as an analyst. So as an analyst, he has a different way of looking at things. I don't know.
I don't have a different way of looking at things. When I like the way they see me, they know what I represent. And for sure, if the person wants to know, normally His Excellency President Paul Biya, we all know. I'm not the one saying it. It's a leader. He's there by divine providence and not what some few people want to see. All right, to come back to what the message one of the viewers sent, asking that after all the grammar, what's the way forward? For me, I see this in two perspectives. The first perspective, Africans need to love themselves. And the second perspective, Africans need to know their enemy and fight their enemies. When I say love ourselves, I'll go back to history. Who sold a fellow black man to a white man is an African. Who called for the white man to come and annex his own country and have agreement with them is the black man. Have you even seen one of the reasons why English Africans wanted Britain to colonize them? Because they love British law, they love British titles like king, dukes, prince. Those are some of the things that made them to accept foreign annexation. Those are the things we must decry. Thirdly, the black man does not respect his fellow black man race. We don't respect our race. You see a black man burning another black man for stealing maybe 500 francs. You burn your own fellow black skinned man. Why would the white man not say Jesus Christ is white and Satan is black? We don't respect our own race. You see the maltreatment we give to our own fellow blacks because of their sex. Maybe it's a woman, you treat her the way you like. What impression do you give the white man when he looks at the way you treat a fellow white, a fellow black man? So it's come back at the level of us, the black race. We should learn to love and protect our own race. If we can love and protect our own black skin race, then it will be difficult for the West to come in. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect now, which I will go detail, which most of my panelists have, most of the panelists already talked about it, is the external forces. The West is controlling Africa through the means. They are all there. One, they'll tell you about Francophonie. They'll tell you about Commonwealth mechanism. They'll tell you about the France CFA. All the means are there that the West is using to infiltrate us because we are divided. And if we learn to love our black race and be united, then we'll be able to fight the West. That still go back now to the idea of Pan-Africanism, which has to do with love and unity for the black man race.
Thank you, Kediah. Now, before we come to, I know that you are bubbling, Professor. Okay, say what you have to say.
I just wanted, before you get, I don't think we have a fight with the West. Africans do not have any fight with the West. What we are doing is we are standing up to ourselves. We need to stand up to ourselves so that we can face the war on an equal ground. So when the white man hears us, we don't have any fight with them. They had come here, we receive them with love. And then the whole idea of who so what. When they came to Africa, they brought deception. We are a loving people. So the whole idea is like we are struggling to degrade on ourselves. We are a people who have principles, we follow them. It is true that manipulation came in and the African man got to where he got to, but we are not against them still.
Okay,
please, I would like to come into this, please.
Just
1 minute.
take the...
I accept that in every mindset, we have those that will look at it in the intellectual capacity, and you have those that will have this this aspect of seeing things which may be violent, or another way they will put it, which unfortunately I belong to those groups. When I think at the way they treated Africa for 400 years of slavery, I always say that even if I'm not alive, there will be a time where a white man will beg for visa to come to Africa. I will do what they are doing to us. As I earlier said, I belong to those people that will see things in that perspective. And it is a battle because the West is exploiting us. France know what they are doing. It's a battle. France know what they are doing. That is why when the ECO was about to be created, they had to use somebody to destroy their agenda. They know it's a battle. It's a psychological war. So I will not come here and say that we don't have any problem. There is a problem and we are fighting it. For, as I earlier said, it's a radical Pan-African perspective, which maybe Professor Mark Anthony sees it in a diplomatic perspective to say, okay, we are in peace, we should do it in a peaceful and loving way, but I don't see it that way.
Thank you, Kediah Malangfe. Now, I want you guys to briefly comment on this topic before we come back. It's not like we are moving out of topic. We are not moving out of topic. The topic is somehow related a little bit. I'm talking about the popular topic, Poti Pota, which you must have heard about, whereby some young African ladies moved to Dubai, to the Middle East, and some influential and wealthy people in that society empty their bowels on the mouth of these African, mostly web influencers and other ladies who want to make it big, who want a kind of fancy lifestyle on the social media. Now, that aside, apart from being probably a diabolic activity, it could also be a way to degrade the black race. I'm sure you've heard about this news, Labaran. We would like to comment first. I would let Labaran comment. I'm coming to you just briefly before we come back. Because, why am I saying this? Because I think if we are talking about Pan-Africanism, these are issues we should actually pay a lot of emphasis on. Because if another race can be allowed to empty their bowels, because those African ladies who are going over there, they are representing us in one way or the other. They are Africans. If a particular race too decides to empty their bowels on the mount, I mean, you know how sacred the mount is, on the mouth of these African ladies, I think that is an indirect attack. Even if it is diabolical activity, it could also be an indirect attack on the black race. How do you see that, Labaran?
It is anatomic, devilish, and it's dehumanizing. You use those words. That somebody will poo in your mouth is humiliating. It paints your image black, as we say, always say black. Yes, it's something very nasty, and it plays on the fact that we Africans don't believe in ourselves that we can make it. We like traveling, which of course is good. It's shameful.
Okay, Labaran, I'm sure you've heard something about that. Do you see it also as an attack on Pan-Africanism?
You see, the first thing is, let's come on the base of a human. If we believe and we hold to the ideology that humans are sacred, then it is funny how another human should feed another human, let me use that, with disease. It is not only humiliating, like my brother used the word, it is inhumane. It is inhumane. And you see, this is the problem with this issue. The fact that Africans can't stay at home. The fact that we think that we need to go somewhere in order to, for greener pastures, in order to be able to become who we are supposed to become. I'm not standing against the ideology of traveling for greener pastures, because that is the state in which we find ourselves in. We are just speaking here of France having over 500 billion US dollar that is coming from Africa as reserves, which could be used in building Africa in a greater dimension. We are talking of illicit financial flow that is leaving Africa every year of over 100 billion US dollars, which could be used in transforming Africa for Africans to stay in Africa. We are talking of a situation where a nation, where colonialists control whatsoever leave Africa. These are some of the reasons why some of our brothers are willing to go through the desert and die in the desert. Some are willing to cross through the Mediterranean Sea and die there, because they think that they are going over there for greener pastures, when in reality, the Westerners see greener pastures in Africa. Those in the Dubai, it was, if you remember, 60 years ago, Dubai as was a sandy area, was a complete desert. But because of the leadership, they decided to unite to form what we call the United Arab Emirates, which gave them the capacity to build. They have been able to transform that sandy area and make it a place where it is worth going to. It's dangerous when the same people who for centuries have been under slavery were given an opportunity 60 years ago to build their own nations, sit in power, decide to take everything for themselves and their families, punish citizens of Africa, and allow them to think that they need to go fend from outside when they are supposed to be fending for themselves in homeland. Look at the consequences of young Africans traveling out of Africa to go feed on feces in another person's nation. when they have what it takes in their own countries to be able to make the difference. I am talking, you see, a different, if you listen to my tone, is different from the way I was speaking before. Because there is a level of anger that comes with the issue, knowing that a fellow African is being put under this kind of condition. It is not because we lack anything in Africa. I'll be sincere in telling you this. It is publicly declared that Africa is the second largest continent in the world. No, it is the first largest continent. When it comes to population, we are the second. But when it comes to landscape, Africa is the largest continent in Africa that can consume the United States, it can consume Europe, it can consume China, it can consume Russia, and we will still have space. But what is happening, that with all this and the mineral resources we find in it, we have our brothers and sisters traveling hectare in order to make money. And now they are being fed with disease in a strange land. And unfortunately, the same people who sit in our leadership positions in Africa will not open their mouths and speak against this kind of issue. They will not even do anything to bring back these same persons back into Africa. It is humiliating. And the blame, I will not put it on those young souls that traveled out of Africa to go look for greener pastures. I am putting it on those who are leading us. In fact, like Kediah said, rulers who are ruling over the African states. We need to be able to transform that evil.
Kediah, now let's talk about this Potipota news, which is, of course, was one of the I mean, it's the news that is making headline news now online. Do you think that those involved in this, because according to some news websites, a list of the involved countries in Africa is already available according to some online websites. Do you think that those ladies who go out to represent Africa in this very, very nasty kind of competition, should they be investigated and arrested? Or do you think the states need to get more involved? Because probably we've not really seen African states taking the information very important. They don't really seem to see the information as anything that they should intervene in.
You see, when it comes to humanity, conscience, it is barbaric, which we decry. But we should be very clear that they are not poor people. We should not sound as if they are poor or desperate people that are going to Europe. They are influential people.
Not Europe, Dubai.
Dubai. They are influential people. What the Frenchman called on social media les influenceurs. This billionaire, they know them. They know that they are influential people, and they want to make this mindset that these people that you see them in your country, your fellow black people, as influential, this is how I treat them in my country. And all viewers that are there, I want to be explicit so that we understand. I know my co-panelists, they have used big terms like physics, the other one used poo-poo, but dear viewers, we are talking about shit. Meaning a girl sits, open the mouth widely, close to the anus of someone, and it comes out, it is full, he eats it, it's done, he continue with the tongue to lick the anus.
Please, don't.
Continue. That it is what our sisters are doing there, to have money, 2 million, 3 million, and come back home. I will not be hypocritic, because I like to talk. No matter what, I like to talk. I know most of the viewers, they know that I'm one of those people that I say my things the way they are, and I damn the consequences. That is what our sisters are doing there. Us back home, when they bring back this money, we eat. Do we ask them what they do there? We stay. We don't try to find out what they do. And they doing that, do they have respect for their skin? That's what I say. Us black people, we don't even respect our race. When you do that, what example are you giving? That is why when another white man will see the way you accept to be demoted more than the slave, because our forefathers 400 years ago, they were being chained and forced. But you are not chained. You do it willingly. What do we want the government to do? Willingly. They were not forced. They use their personal money. They go to Dubai. They accept willingly because of money that is being proposed to them. They open their mouth and they do such barbaric things. This one is more than physical slavery. This is what we call mental slavery. Willingly. Enslaving oneself willingly. You are ready to be degraded
Our forefathers that were being chained, maltreated, were doing that unwillingly. They were being forced, pushed, and flogged. But what happened? They go to Dubai, they accept willingly, influential people that we know them here, we see them on social media, they accept to do that willingly and accept such a thing into their mouth is barbaric. And even if the law, it will be complex with the law to punish them because they did it by will, and this white man stuff that they have brought in the name of human right or individual right has come in, it makes things to be very complex. But the African culture would sanction them where they will not have their place, but to apologize to the entire Africa for bringing this humiliation to our black race.
Even if it is done willingly, of course, it could become a public health emergency because you never can tell what those very mouths will be used, or those very mouths will be used to maybe kiss people in the society. And of course, you never can tell the kind of germs of maybe viruses or bacteria that are going to be spread back to the population.
For me, I think that if it is by law or looking at it at the perspective of the international community, is the person that decides to put his poo-poo in the mouth of another person. For me, I think that is the person that is the criminal and not the girl that decides. That is one thing that is complex, because even in our law in Cameroon, it is very clear. A girl that does prostitution is really not the criminal, but you paying to have sex with her, demoting her, you become the criminal. So there is this perspective. We should be honest to say that Dubai, which the world know as a tourist zone, well respected, they should know that that is the inhuman activity their citizens are carrying on, and they should be able to sanction them, because if they don't sanction them, the image of that area will be tarnished. Do you think many people will leave America, leave Europe, and go to Dubai again and feel comfortable?
Okay, thank you, Kediah. But which means, Sheikh, that if we should be able to capture or to track those that are in charge of these, of course, we will need to maybe contact the influencers for the investigations to begin. Because if not, we might end up not knowing who those that are behind this inhuman treatment of the black race in Dubai.
We started by saying that there are many types of slavery. And each one of them is just as constrict, just as has a limiting effect on the person, like the physical slavery we know with chains. Chains can be chemical. If I make you addicted to a particular drug, for example, I will control you. The chains can be financial and economic. But that said, this issue which you people are mentioning, let us not forget that we are having a situation where the global elite becoming weaker and weaker. That means many of their misgivings are now being released. That is why you find cardinals being arrested for pedophilia, people who before were untouchable now be arrested for pedophilia. That's because this openness is coming. There are many secret indictments right now in the United States. Recently, I saw a case where the police raided a place in the United States and captured 600 liters of adrenochrome. For those who don't know, adrenochrome is the most expensive drug on planet Earth. And it is manufactured from the blood of young children who are frightened to the maximum in order to maximize the level of adrenaline in their blood, and then slaughtered, drained of their blood, and that blood is used to manufacture adrenochrome, which is used as a drug by rich people.
And what is the use of the drug?
They claim that it gives them sexual vitality, it gives them longevity. When you look at some of the elite families like the Rothschild or Rockefeller, you realize they always live up to 90-something, 100 years. People claim that it's because of the use of this drug. So many other things are going to come out. I'm going to show you the world has not been a kind place. There was a slave colony in Antarctica, which has been dismantled. And there, humans were caught and sold off-planet as slaves. In a single year, more than 66,000 women disappeared from America. Right now, the number of children are counted in the hundreds of thousands. So there are many evil things which are happening, and what you're mentioning in Dubai is actually very small compared to children being frightened and slaughtered and blood drained. That one is, nevertheless, there is also this mentality in Africa which we must fight, and I think the religious leaders somehow have not been able to perform their duty up to the maximum. And that is to make people understand, one, the first step in your religion, in your spiritual progress, is when you go beyond pointing fingers. In other words, you realize there is the law of attraction, and everything which comes to you is because of either your deeds in the past, your thoughts, your feelings, or your beliefs. Well, once we get to that situation, then we will start trying to change ourselves in order to have a society of high vibration, which will be free from those things. And under those circumstances, people will not think that wealth can be obtained by certain sacrifices, like the one I mentioned earlier, of eating his own feces. And now it's a case of eating somebody else's feces. You have many other variations of the same thing. Sometimes they link menstrual blood as a satanic pact. And all those things are aimed, to explain it to you, they're aimed to reduce your vibration so that you can now be possessed by a non-physical entity who in that process will have control on the planet, in the world, in human society. To put it, the popular word which is used are demons. When you lower your vibration by committing an atrocious act like pedophilia, rape, or getting impure substances like the feces or the adrenochrome, blood from children and things like that, you lower your vibration. You can now be possessed by some non-physical entity. But those non-physical entities, they don't have anything to offer. That is why they use your own ability of manifestation of your wishes, because the Almighty has created us as, it says in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We have been honored. Those spirits who claim to give you wealth, they use your own ability to give that wealth, because they can see your spiritual body, your etheric body, because they're in the fourth dimension, fourth density. And they use, if they see that you're poor, they can easily see that you're poor because of this or that or that. They can manipulate and shift things so that the wealth will come, but then you become sick all the time. You never really gain anything from them. So the best thing is to do the thing by your own self and count on the Almighty and not rely on any person. Know that that person who is satisfying himself, either by degrading you, lowering your vibration, or satisfying some kind of recommendation has been given in a particular mystical order or lodge, is you're not going to gain anything, no matter how many billions you get after the situation. You've lost something more, far bigger than what they're giving you. Because Satan, you never negotiate with Satan and gain.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Mohammed. Let me get messages and then we conclude. You see, we are already having just a few minutes to the end of the show. I'm Charles from Boya. I pray this program should be watched by all Africans. My name is Semga Akbel. In fact, Pa Sheikh has really given me knowledge about Africa and again the meaning of Boko Haram. Thank you so much, Pa Sheikh. He's calling you Pa Sheikh. He's an imam, so you can call him Sheikh Mohammed Ngubong. Yes, also, exactly. Greetings to all in the studio. This topic is very interesting and I'm learning many new things from the Muslim man and the professor. They are so emotional. My name is Pamela, watching from Yaoundé, Pamela Tino, watching from Yaoundé. Greetings to you all. This is an eye-opener to the youth. I'm recorded the program and I need permission to use it. Greetings to you. This is an eye-opener. I recorded the program and I need permission to use it. I am in class. God bless you all. My name is Usman Adamu Ahmed, watching you guys from Nasarawa State in Nigeria. Watching from Nasarawa State. Greetings to you all. I want to say the program and its panelists, they are very intelligent and educative. Keep it up. I'm Angel Sam, watching from Yoke, and other messages that start coming in. Wesley, who says, in a situation like this, any responsible government will immediately petition the United Arab Emirates ambassador to their country to come to the foreign ministry to answer for this. If a government doesn't care what happens to our citizens, then things like this will continue. Last thought of the table, let me just give, sometimes sweet things don't last for long. Let me just give 30 seconds for conclusion. And of course, we are going to organize more programs to talk about this. I start with you, Labaran.
Okay, I'm very happy being here. At least we have shared this idea. But when we come to talk about the nasty thing happening in Dubai, it brings in the international aspect of law. So the foreign country, Cameroon, for example, has the right to sue to someone, the Dubai government, for this. But now the program has been wonderful, at least I've learned a lot. That's why I see most of my questions were directed to Sheikh, because when it comes to Muslim movement, the Islamic movement is the best person to handle that.
He's a living library.
Yes.
Professor Mark, thank you so much for coming. Despite your very busy schedule, you took time to honor my invitation.
It's my pleasure, and I want to say that, like I said from the very beginning, if we want the spirit of Pan-Africanism to be transferred from one generation to the other, like it happened with our fathers, but today there was a gap, and today we are picking it up. I think our curricula, school curriculums need to be reorganized to fit what belongs to Africa. Let's teach Africans what Africa is all about. We should stop teaching Europe to Africa. I think Kediah actually mentioned an issue where we talk of the what revolution? Glorious revolution. Teaching about Europe to Africans when Africans actually do not need that. We need to know about ourselves and how we got to where we are before. And I mentioned this. Today when we talk of who is the father of modern medicine, you hear they will give you names, call Greek fathers like Hippocrates. But Hippocrates was never the father of modern medicine. The father of modern medicine was Imhotep.
Yes, an African.
From ancient Kemet.
But if you write down the GCE, you're not going to succeed.
That's the problem. We are working on certificates instead of working on true knowledge. So we need to educate Africans on the reality of issues.
Thank you so much, Professor Mark. Kediah, 30 seconds for your concluding remark.
I want us Africans to love ourselves, be united, so that we can achieve many more things, especially the zones that are rich. If the Igbos in Nigeria, they feel that they have most of the oil deposit and they should fight to be independent, they should stop it and think about the general interest. If a country in the St. Mark zone feel that in 2006 an accord was signed and they have a reserve of petrol in their section and they think they want to get independent, is being greedy, they should unite with Africa. If in the 1960 Maurice Trimbe thought that since Katanga is having most of the deposit, they are to fight and be independent so that as a minority they enjoy, it is wrong. We should love ourselves. We should love the white black race. We should protect the black race and fight for the general interest of our continent. When we are divided, the West will definitely find the pawns that they will use to separate us and exploit our natural resources and even our human resources.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Mohammed, for coming.
Right. The watchword I would say which should become a mantra in Africa is unity, self-sufficiency, and discretion. Our minerals and the resources must be managed very well so people don't come. And the panelist talked about medicine. The next stage in medicine now is something called vibratory medicine.
Energy medicine.
Between now and 2025, it is estimated that the international pharmaceutical mafia will collapse. One of the things which exists in vibratory medicine is the use of sound frequencies to heal. And one of those frequencies is 528 hertz, which has the ability to correct DNA which has been damaged. Because we're having some things which are put into people now which is supposed to transform them genetically, and it is important to know that. I produce a pipe which resonates at 528 hertz. And when you look at this and you go to our traditional healers, you see that they all have pipes. That is because those are traditional healers. Actually, we're practicing the next stage of medicine, but we've been brainwashed to think that that is primitive. So let us emancipate ourselves and we'll be able to go forward. The technology is already here.
Yes.
Thank you, Sheikh. I'll invite you on another program so that you can blow the pipe and we see how the kind of vibration energy and the healing that's going to take place. Thank you so much, Sheikh, for coming. Thank you, Professor Mark. Thank you, Labaran Bekondo, for joining us all the way from Boya. Thank you so much, Kediah Malangfe, and to all the 90 Minutes in Africa crew who support us and share our programs in one way or the other. To this edition of the program, we want to thank you. We want to thank the programs department, Michael Ojong, Lasha Kingsley, coordinated by Kum Leonard with the input of produced by Johnson Vola and Christian Tebong, supervised by Brilliant Tambe. At the microphone for presentation, I am Boh Elvis. Thank you for watching. See you next week for another edition of 90 Minutes in Africa, God willing. Bye-bye.